Human pulled an alien girl from the smoke line. Her gesture after the rescue spoke louder than thanks. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. The alarm lights pulsed in slow, uneasy waves across the metal decks of the station, a soft red glow turning every surface into something dreamlike and distant. Ethan Cole felt the hum of the ventilation towers through the soles of his boots as he stepped toward the service platform where the thin silver railing bent under the weight of drifting haze. The smoke line wasn't fire, wasn't heat, wasn't anything you could see clearly, just a shimmering distortion rolling across the air like a mirage. He had been trained to keep a respectful distance, to let the safety shutters do their work, but today something caught the corner of his eye. A silhouette. Small. Still. Too still. He blinked against the haze and saw her. Leary Velshawn, the young alien technician assigned to atmospheric readings, her pale blue skin blurred by the wavering air, her posture frozen as if she couldn't decide whether to move or hold her breath. The shimmer edged closer to her boots, rippling the space around her like heat above asphalt. Ethan didn't hear a command, didn't think about protocols, didn't even register the soft buzz of his comm. All he felt was the tightening of his chest as he ran the last few steps, the metallic scent of the air, the cool touch of the railing brushing his arm as he reached out. Hey, he said softly, his voice carrying just enough warmth to cut through the humming quiet. Leary didn't respond, her gaze fixed on the distortion at her feet, the strain in her shoulders giving away more fear than her face allowed. When Ethan wrapped an arm gently around her upper back, she startled, her breath catching. You're okay, he murmured, guiding her away from the shimmering boundary. She tried to step, but her foot slipped on the smooth metal, and he steadied her with both hands, moving slowly, carefully, making sure she felt control returning to her body. The air behind them wavered a little stronger for a moment, then softened again as they reached the clearer side of the platform. Leary exhaled, the sound thin and trembling, almost lost in the low thrum of the station's engines. Ethan loosened his grip, but didn't step away until she found her balance. Her silver-bright eyes lifted to meet his, wide with something like disbelief. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. The station felt immense around them, full of quiet metal and distant machinery. Yet in that moment all Ethan noticed was the faint warmth of her shoulder under his hand and the way she tried to steady her breath. He expected words, some formal phrase from her disciplined culture, some polite acknowledgement, but instead she reached for his wrist with both hands, holding it gently, as if confirming he was real. No speech, no ceremony, just a quiet, grateful touch that said more than anything she could have spoken. The haze behind them thinned, but the moment stayed, suspended like the soft hum of the lights around them, warm and close in a place made of steel and distance. The hum of the station settled into a steady rhythm as Ethan guided Leary down the narrow service walkway, the metal warm beneath their steps from the earlier pressure surge. The haze had thinned, leaving only a faint scent in the air, something sharp and mineral that clung to their clothes. Leary kept one hand lightly against the railing, her movements careful, as if the ground still wavered beneath her. Ethan stayed close, but not imposing, matching his pace to hers without comment. The soft overhead lights flickered once, casting their shadows long across the walkway before stabilizing again. Leary finally spoke, her voice low and steady but softer than before. I did not realize how quickly it could shift, she said, glancing back at the platform where the distortion had rolled in. The readings suggested we had minutes. Ethan nodded, wiping a faint trace of dust from his sleeve. Sometimes the instruments do not catch the smaller fluctuations, he said. They sneak up on you. Happens to all of us. She studied him for a moment, her silver eyes narrowing slightly, not with suspicion, but with thought. You reacted. As if you expected it. As if you were waiting. Ethan shrugged lightly. Just instinct, he said. When something looks wrong, you move. Leary held a small pause between her breaths, the kind that carried more meaning than spoken words. She did not contradict him, But the look she gave him suggested that in her world, instinct was a trained, deliberate thing, not a reflex of care. They reached the threshold of a maintenance alcove where soft blue emergency lights cast a gentler glow. Ethan gestured for her to sit on the low supply crate, and she lowered herself slowly, hands resting on her knees. He knelt beside a small control panel, adjusting the airflow settings to clear out any remaining haze. Leary watched his hands as he worked, the calm precision in his movements, the faint scrape of metal tools against the panel. "You did not hesitate," she said quietly. Even when the distortion reached the platform, Ethan leaned back on his heels, meeting her eyes. "You looked stuck," he said. "Anyone would have done the same." Leary tilted her head slightly, the motion soft, almost disbelieving. "Not in my unit," she said. "Not under those conditions." She looked down at her hands, studying the faint glow that lingered on her skin from the overhead lamps. "Where I come from, stepping into danger without rank permission is considered reckless." Ethan offered a small smile. "Maybe it was," he said. "But sometimes doing the right thing is not about rank." Her gaze lifted again, steady and searching. There was no accusation in it. Only curiosity, the kind that came from someone trying to understand a way of thinking she had never encountered before. A quiet tone sounded overhead as the airflow stabilized, bringing with it a cooler breeze that brushed past them. Leary breathed it in slowly, letting the air steady her posture. She placed her palm briefly over her chest, a gesture Ethan had seen her species use when grounding emotions they preferred not to show. "I am grateful," she said, the words simple but heavy, shaped with sincerity that needed no embellishment. Ethan nodded once, respectful of the honesty in her voice. "You are safe now," he said. "That is what matters." She looked at him with a softness that had not been there before, a quiet shift in her expression that spoke of trust forming in small, steady pieces. In the dim alcove light, with the distant hum of machinery filling the silence, the moment felt fragile and real, like something neither of them wanted to break. The alcove lights dimmed to their regular hue as the station's system settled, leaving a soft glow that blended with the steady hum beneath the floor. Ethan checked the airflow panel one last time before closing it with a quiet click. The cool breeze circulating through the corridor eased the lingering sharpness in the air, and Leary's shoulders lowered slightly as she adjusted to the calmer atmosphere. She traced the edge of the crate she sat on with the tip of her finger, the motion slow and rhythmic, grounding herself. Ethan stayed nearby, leaning lightly against the wall, careful not to crowd her, but close enough to reassure. A faint vibration pulsed under their feet, signaling the tower stabilizers shifting into a lower cycle. Leary lifted her head at the sensation, her expression turning thoughtful. "The station feels different now," she said, "like it is settling after a long breath." Ethan nodded. "It does that when the pressure evens out. It means we are in the clear." She held the silence a moment longer, her gaze lowered as if collecting her thoughts. When she finally looked up, her eyes reflected the soft blue alert lights overhead, the color giving her expression a quiet, distant beauty. "I want to understand something," she said gently. Ethan stepped forward just enough to show he was listening. "Why did you speak to me the way you did? Back on the platform. You said I was okay. You said it like you meant it." Ethan paused, choosing his words with the same care he used when handling delicate station equipment. "Because you were scared," he said simply. "And sometimes a calm voice helps more than a command." Leary blinked, as if the idea surprised her. "In my training, fear is addressed with procedure," she said. "Not comfort." Ethan smiled softly. "Maybe both have their place." She considered that, her fingers folding together loosely in her lap. "When you guided me away, I thought you were issuing a directive," she admitted. "But it felt different. It felt like you were looking out for me, not performing duty." The way she said it carried no accusation, only something delicate and searching. Ethan let out a quiet breath. "I was," he said. "Anyone would have." Her head tilted slightly, the same subtle motion she had made when trying to puzzle out his logic earlier. "I am learning that your definition of anyone is broader than ours," she said. The gentle honesty of her voice softened the air between them. Another vibration rippled through the deck, gentler this time, fading quickly. Leary stood slowly, steadying herself with one hand on the crate before facing Ethan fully. She clasped her hands together in front of her, a gesture of composure among her people. "Ethan," she said, her voice low but firm. I want you to know that your presence eased my fear more than you realize. He held her gaze, waiting. And I did not know that was possible, she added. The quiet engine hum filled the pause that followed, giving her words a chance to settle. Ethan offered her a reassuring nod. You handled everything well, he said. Anyone else might have panicked. She shook her head gently. No, not anyone. You. Her words were simple, but the way she spoke them carried a warmth that reached him more clearly than her earlier thanks. The two stood there in the soft blue glow, the long corridor stretching out on either side of them, silent except for the steady, reassuring rhythm of the station around them, as if it too had paused to listen. The corridor lights shifted from blue to a gentle white as the station transitioned into its mid-cycle routines, the brightness softening the shadows along the walls. Ethan walked beside Leary at an unhurried pace, giving her time to settle into the quiet that followed their earlier tension. The air smelled cleaner now, touched with a faint metallic coolness from the filtration units resetting. Leary's steps grew steadier with each yard they covered, her shoulders relaxing as the sense of danger faded into memory. They reached a small observation niche built into the outer ring of the station, a narrow alcove with a curved window overlooking the cloudy expanse of the planet below. The pale atmosphere swirled in slow spirals, tinted silver where the station's lights reflected off the mist. Leary paused in front of the window, her breath catching softly at the view. Ethan watched her expression soften, her eyes widening in quiet awe. It looks different from here, she said, her voice calm but touched with something fragile. From the platform, the clouds feel heavy. From here, they look peaceful. Ethan rested a hand lightly on the railing. Perspective changes things, he said. When you are close, all you see is the danger. Step back a little, and it becomes something else. She turned toward him, her silver eyes catching the reflection of the swirling clouds. You speak of it like you know the feeling well. Ethan gave a small, almost shy smile. I have been working on stations like this for years. There is always something new to learn from the view. Leary studied him quietly, her expression gentle. You feel at home here, she said, even with the alarms and the unpredictable cycles. He shrugged lightly. Home is where you learn to breathe without thinking too much about the rest. Her gaze returned to the window, but her posture shifted, leaning slightly closer to him, as if the shared view connected them more than words. A soft vibration signaled a calibration shift, and the glass shimmered faintly as the system adjusted. The swirl of clouds brightened for a moment, illuminating the delicate patterns drifting below. Leary lifted her hand, placing her palm against the glass with slow reverence. My people do not have skies like this, she said. Our world has a thick crystal layer above the atmosphere. We only see light that passes through it. Nothing moves the way these clouds do. Ethan listened, the quiet wonder in her voice drawing a small warmth to his chest. Do you miss it? He asked. She thought for a long moment before giving a small shake of her head. I miss what is familiar, she said, but not enough to regret being here. Especially not today. Ethan felt the meaning in her words linger in the air, subtle and sincere. She lowered her hand from the window and looked at him with a steadiness that felt almost like a confession, without the weight of fear. I am still learning what it means to rely on someone, she said. Where I come from, trust is earned through long cycles of service. But you... She stopped, searching for the right thought. You offered safety without asking for anything. Ethan let the silence absorb her words before speaking. Sometimes people help because it is the right thing, not because they want something in return. Leary nodded slowly, absorbing that idea as though it were something rare and delicate. The subtle hum of the station filled the quiet between them, soft and warm, like a heartbeat beneath the metal around them. The soft reflection of the swirling clouds faded as the observation window dimmed back to its normal setting, letting the station's interior lighting take over with a warm, gentle glow. Leary let her hand fall from the glass, her fingertips lingering in the air for a moment as if reluctant to break the quiet connection she had formed with the view. Ethan watched her steady breath, noticing how the earlier tension had been replaced by something calmer, more grounded. She stepped back from the window, clasping her hands lightly in front of her. The station feels different when you are not alone, she said, her voice thoughtful. The quiet does not echo as much. Ethan offered a small smile. It grows on you, he replied. The sounds, the light, the way everything vibrates at once. After a while, it starts to feel familiar. Leary tilted her head slightly, studying him as if his calmness was a puzzle she had not yet solved. You adapt easily, she said. Humans change with their environments faster than my people do. Ethan shrugged gently. Maybe. Or maybe I just had to learn early on. My first station assignment was rough. I did not know what any of the alarms meant. I jumped every time the vents kicked on. A soft trace of amusement touched Leary's features, the hint of a smile ghosting across her lips. I cannot imagine you startled, she said. You move as if every sound has a place. Ethan laughed quietly. Believe me, I had my moments. The corridor lights flickered once as a maintenance unit rolled past in the distance, humming softly. Leary shifted her stance, turning slightly toward him. Earlier, she said, when you guided me away, I thought about something I had been taught. We are raised to focus on efficiency, precision, and duty. Comfort is not discouraged, but it is not part of our training. Ethan's expression softened. Do you want it to be? She hesitated, her silver eyes lowering for a moment. I do not know, she admitted. But when you spoke to me the way you did, something felt steadying, like a light in a dim corridor. Her hands tightened gently, as if holding onto the memory. It made me rethink how safety can feel. Ethan took a small step closer, not enough to intrude, but enough to show he heard her. Everyone deserves to feel safe, he said, even during a bad moment. Leary lifted her gaze, the softness returning to her expression. Where I come from, safety is measured in procedures and protocols. But your way is, she paused, searching. Your way is more human than I expected. Ethan met her eyes, feeling the quiet sincerity in her words. Maybe both ways can work, he said. No rule says you cannot have structure and comfort. Leary breathed slowly, letting his words settle like the hum beneath their feet. I think, she said gently, that having someone beside you makes the difference. Her voice held no weight of obligation, only an honest recognition that seemed to soften the space between them. The corridor lights glowed warm across the metal rails, and the low vibration of the station filled the silence that followed, wrapping the moment in a quiet warmth neither of them felt the need to interrupt. I will comply with your instructions. Here is part 6 written exactly as required. The station's mid-cycle hum deepened into a lower, steadier rhythm as the lights along the corridor faded to a softer tone. It was the kind of quiet that seemed to press gently on the ears, a calm that settled in once the systems finished their adjustments. Ethan and Leary walked side by side, their steps slow, unhurried, almost synchronized without thought. Leary's posture had changed. The stiffness from earlier had eased, replaced by something more open, more curious. Her silver eyes moved along the walls, following the way the lights shimmered faintly against the metal as if she were seeing the station with new attention. Your people rely heavily on instinct, she said, her voice carrying a contemplative warmth. It surprises me. You react quickly, even when you do not have full information. Ethan glanced at her, adjusting the small toolkit hanging at his side. Sometimes that is what keeps you safe, he replied. You trust what your gut tells you, and you act. Leary's fingers brushed the railing lightly, the touch soft and steady. Where I come from, acting without a full analysis is discouraged, she said. Our training demands certainty. Ethan smiled faintly. If I waited for certainty, every time something on this station acted strange, I would never get anything done. Leary exhaled softly, almost sounding like a quiet laugh. Perhaps that is why your people are known for resilience, she said. You move before doubt takes root. They turned into a maintenance passageway illuminated by a warm row of overhead lamps. The walls hummed gently, a reminder of the complex systems running behind them. Ethan checked a small monitor mounted along the walkway. The readings glowed stable, a reassuring green. Everything looks good, he said. Leary watched him work, her expression thoughtful. Earlier, when the distortion reached the platform, you did not pause, she said. Were you not afraid? Ethan leaned against the wall, considering the question. Of course I was, he said. Fear is normal. It keeps you sharp, but I cannot let it freeze me. She studied his face as if searching for evidence of his words. How do you know when to move? She asked quietly. How do you decide? Ethan lifted one shoulder in a gentle shrug. I ask myself one thing. If I do nothing, will someone get hurt? Leary absorbed that in silence, her eyes lowering as she walked a few steps ahead. The corridor lights reflected off her skin in soft hues, giving her presence a calm glow. Your logic is simple, she said, yet it carries weight. Ethan nodded. Simple works when things get messy. She stopped, turning toward him with a seriousness he had not seen before. Ethan, she said softly, would you have acted the same if it had been another technician? Someone you did not know. He met her gaze without hesitation. Yes, he said. It would not have mattered who it was. The quiet that followed held something delicate, something shifting between them. Leary's eyes softened in a way that felt deeper than gratitude. Your people do not hesitate to protect others, she said. Even strangers. Ethan nodded once, slow and steady. We try. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a gentle murmur. It is difficult for me to understand, she admitted. But I want to. The soft hum of the station wrapped around them, warm and constant, as if the metal itself held the moment carefully in place. The soft hum beneath the floor shifted into a deeper vibration, subtle but distinct enough to make Ethan pause mid-step. He glanced toward the overhead lights as they flickered once, a quiet signal that the station's atmospheric regulators were entering a recalibration cycle. It was routine, usually harmless, yet something about the tone in the air felt slightly off, like a whisper running through the metal. Leary noticed it too. Her silver eyes narrowed, not in fear, but in alert focus. The regulators should not shift at this hour, she said softly. They were calibrated just before the incident. Ethan checked the nearest wall panel. The readings pulsed in steady green, but the low tremor in the deck did not fade. Maybe the earlier pressure spike threw off a timing loop, he said, though his voice carried a note of caution. Leary stepped closer, studying the panel with him. Or something upstream is overcompensating, she added. The air flow feels uneven. Ethan felt it as she spoke, the faint change in temperature brushing his arm, the subtle movement of air that did not match the usual pattern. It was like the station inhaled too deeply and struggled to exhale. Let us check the secondary valve chamber, he said. It is just around the corner. They walked together toward the curved end of the maintenance corridor where a tall hatch marked with soft yellow lights waited. The vibration underfoot grew slightly stronger, not alarming but insistently present. Leary touched the metal surface with her fingertips, sensing the pulse running through it. The pressure is rising on the inside, she murmured. Not dangerously, but faster than it should. Ethan keyed the panel beside the hatch, and the door slid open with a low hiss. The chamber beyond was narrow, filled with a muted blue glow from the pressure conduits running along the walls. A soft mist clung to the floor, swirling gently around their ankles as they stepped inside. Ethan moved toward the manual regulator valve, scanning the readings. It is creeping upward, he said. Nothing serious yet, but we should reset it before it builds any higher. He reached for the control lever, but a sharp chime echoed overhead, an unexpected tone, bright and abrupt. Leary's posture straightened immediately. That was not a standard alert, she said. It sounded like a proximity warning. Ethan looked toward the chamber entrance, listening. The hum of the station deepened again, and a faint rush of air swept along the corridor outside, as if the atmosphere systems were pulling resources from other sections. Leary stepped to his side, her voice calm but firm. Ethan, something is shifting in the main cycle. We should not linger. He nodded, tightening his grip on the lever. I will make this quick. Once the pressure levels stabilize, the systems will fall back into balance. But the moment he began the reset, the chamber lights flickered, the blue glow pulsing softly against the walls. Leary moved closer, watching the readings climb a fraction before easing. It is responding, she said. Keep going. Ethan focused on the controls, steady and deliberate, while Leary kept her attention on the shifting air around them. The subtle changes in temperature brushed her cheeks, cool then warm in a slow wave. Yet despite the tension building in the systems, she remained close, her presence steady and grounding. When the pressure gauge finally dipped into the safe zone, Ethan exhaled in relief. There, he said softly. We caught it in time. Leary touched the panel lightly, confirming the readings with a small nod. You acted quickly again, she said. Your instincts are reliable. Ethan smiled gently. We make a good team. Leary held his gaze for a long, quiet moment, the blue glow reflecting in her eyes before she spoke. Yes, she murmured. We do. The chamber lights steadied into a calm blue glow, but the air still carried a faint tremor, a reminder that the station's systems were adjusting beneath their feet. Ethan stepped back from the regulator valve, rolling his shoulders once as the tension eased from his muscles. Leary stayed close, her eyes tracing the soft pulse of light running along the conduit lines as if reading a quiet language only she understood. The mist on the floor thinned, swirling into the vents with a gentle pull. It is settling, she said softly. The pressure is finding its balance again. Ethan nodded. Good. The system just needed a firm nudge. Leary turned toward him, her expression shifting into something deeper, more introspective. A firm nudge, she repeated, almost contemplative. That is what you give, not only to the systems here, but to moments. Ethan leaned against the nearby support column, curious. Moments. She approached slowly, the blue glow warming the edges of her features. When I froze on the platform, she said, you moved. When the distortion came back, you steadied me. And now, when the system wavered, you did not hesitate. She paused, her voice lowering. Your instinct shapes the outcome. Ethan offered a faint smile. Someone has to act. Leary stepped even closer, her posture calm but unwavering. It is more than action, she said. It is choice. The air around them grew still, as if the station itself held its breath. Ethan watched her carefully, sensing something unspoken forming in the quiet. Leary lifted her hand, resting her palm lightly against the metal support between them. There is something I have not told you, she said. Something my people do not often reveal. Ethan straightened slightly, attentive but patient. Leary's eyes softened, silver lights swirling like liquid metal. I am not just a technician, she said. I was placed here as an observer. My role is to study the cooperative habits of humans in unfamiliar environments. Ethan blinked, taken by surprise. An observer? She nodded once. I was instructed to remain neutral, detached, to watch without interfering. She lowered her gaze briefly, a small crease forming between her brows. But today, I failed that directive. Ethan stepped closer, his voice gentle. Failed how? Leary's hands folded together, her shoulders lifting in a quiet breath. I felt fear. I felt relief. And when you reached for me, I did not maintain distance. She raised her eyes to his, the admission soft but sincere. And when you chose to stay beside me through the pressure surge, I wanted you to. Ethan's expression eased into something warm, steady, inviting honesty without pressing for it. Leary, he said, you are not wrong for feeling something. She exhaled slowly, the tension in her posture loosening. Among my people, emotional attachment during observation is discouraged, she said. But I am starting to understand that you do not measure connections the way we do. Ethan shook his head gently. We do not. Sometimes connections happen without planning. Leary stepped closer, close enough that her voice softened into a near whisper. You changed my outcome, she said. Not because of duty. Because of who you are. The chamber lights dimmed slightly, leaving a warm glow around them. For a long moment, neither moved. The station hummed softly, holding the quiet truth between them like something precious. The soft blue glow of the chamber lights eased into a calmer shade, settling over the narrow room like a held breath finally released. The air felt lighter. Now, steadier, as if the entire station had exhaled in relief after the recalibration. Ethan stood beside the support column, watching Leary as her admission settled between them. There was no tension, only a quiet understanding that seemed to deepen with each passing second. Leary stepped away from the conduit lines and moved toward the threshold of the chamber. The mist near the floor curled around her ankles before being pulled into the vents, leaving the space clear. She paused at the doorway, turning back to him with an expression that carried a rare softness. Ethan, she said, her voice low but steady. I have spent cycles studying human behavior. None of my training prepared me for what happened today. Ethan crossed the chamber slowly, stopping a respectful distance from her. What happened today was just people helping each other, he said. Nothing more. Leary shook her head gently. It is more. You changed the way I understand connection. Not through words. Through action. The quiet sincerity in her tone made the chamber feel warmer. Ethan watched her carefully, noting the subtle shift in her posture. She stood with a kind of openness he had not seen before, as though the shield of her assignment had finally lowered. A soft vibration hummed beneath the floor, signaling the regulators completing their cycle. Leary glanced toward the corridor, then back at him. "There is a gesture among my people," she said slowly, "reserved for moments when gratitude is not enough. It is not given lightly. It is not spoken of often." Ethan's brow lifted slightly. "You do not have to show me anything you are not comfortable with." Leary held his gaze, her silver eyes reflecting the faint glow of the chamber lights. "I want to," she said. She stepped closer, crossing the small remaining distance between them. Then, with deliberate calm, she reached for his hand. Her fingers were cool against his skin, gentle but certain. She turned his hand slightly, bringing the back of it toward her forehead. And in one fluid, graceful motion, she bowed her head and touched her forehead to the back of his hand, holding the contact for a heartbeat longer than necessary. It was quiet, pure, reverent. When she lifted her head again, her eyes held a depth that needed no translation. "Among my people," she said softly, "this says, you altered my path, and I acknowledge your spirit." Ethan stood still, the moment settling into him with a warmth that spread through his chest. He did not speak. He did not need to. Leary released his hand gently, her expression calm but illuminated with a fragile, earnest light. "I wanted you to know what your actions meant," she added. They stepped out of the chamber together, the corridor stretching before them in a soft wash of white and amber light. The station hummed around them, familiar and steady. Leary walked beside him, her shoulder almost brushing his, their steps falling into quiet rhythm. No words passed between them now. They did not need any. The silence said enough, warm and full, carrying a meaning deeper than anything spoken. And as they walked, the faint reflection of the station lights glowed in Leary's eyes, softening into something unmistakably human for just a moment.